Sometimes life doesn't shout at you to pay attention. For me, it was a notebook, a handful of words, and my son, opening my eyes to reveal how much I have underestimated him. This story spans more than a decade, but it truly begins when my son was just 2 years old. At the time, I was working away in Darwin, far from my family in Perth. It was my wife who first noticed the delays, the way our youngest struggled with milestones. After a series of assessments, we got the diagnosis: autism, ADHD, nonverbal. I didn't truly understand what that meant, and being away made it easier to avoid facing it. My wife had everything under control, or so I told myself. For 2 years, I was mostly a voice on the phone. When I finally came home, FIFO work kept me in and out of their lives. My wife carried the load, the medical appointments, the therapies, the daily challenges, while I focused on work. When I was home, I did what I could to assist my wife with my son. Carried the bags to appointments, offered moral support, but deep down, I felt more like a visitor than a parent. Now, when it was time for school, we gave school a try. However, we saw the stress, the way he'd retreat, hide at the back of the classroom. This simply conjured up images of a child, my son, being made to feel different. I couldn't stand the thought of him being bullied or made to feel less than he is. I already knew how fragile confidence can be, and I wanted to protect his. We chose to homeschool, and to this day, I believe it's one of the best decisions we've made for him. For years, life stayed that way. However, everything changed when my son was around 8 years old. My wife's health began to decline. What started as forgetfulness and confusion grew into something much worse. Some days, she couldn't get out of bed. The woman who had carried our family on her shoulders, who was our son's safe place, now struggled just to carry herself. That's when I came home for good. I left FIFO work and reunited fully with my family. And it didn't take long for me to see the truth I'd been avoiding all those years. My son's world was tougher than I had imagined. I watched him at social groups and therapy sessions, surrounded by professionals doing their best. But nothing truly connected with him. Nothing sparked real change. It was tough to watch, and it made me realize I didn't really know my own son. I didn't know what he was capable of. Cody was 10 when I remembered a podcast I'd heard about identity, how simple words and numbers could help you understand yourself better. I wondered if I could do this with Cody. I grabbed a notebook and wrote down words like kind, shy, happy, sad, confident, smart. We sat down and I asked him what each word meant to him and how much it described him on a scale of 1 to 10. To my surprise, he understood every word. And even more surprising, he rated himself high and confident. I tested again with words like lonely, weak, selfish. Same result. He didn't see himself in a negative way at all. That realization floored me. All this time, I had assumed limits for him. Limits that didn't exist in his own mind. I had again underestimated my son. But underneath it all, I felt something else. Hope. If he could see himself in a positive way, maybe he was capable of so much more than I had imagined. I immediately began dissecting what had just happened. I needed to understand where this strength in him had come from, how it had developed. My wife and I had always made it a priority to give Cody a safe, loving environment. with as little pressure and expectation as possible. Deep down, I'd always carried this belief, this inner knowing I couldn't explain, that as Cody grew older, his cognitive understanding would catch up, and with the right guidance and without stress, he would find his way. That thought sent me inward, back through my own childhood, my academic struggles in school, my internal self-worth bolstered by sport, the Navy years that built my confidence and resilience, the fitness industry where I learned to mentor and lift others' confidence, the FIFO leadership roles that demanded strength under pressure. That's when I realized I had been moving through fatherhood on autopilot, waiting for others to create change for my son. But deep down, I knew no one had more influence over him than I did. That truth hit me hard. Part guilt, part heartbreak, but it also sparked a promise to myself. I immersed myself in learning about autism, ADHD, and the inner workings of thought, emotions, and behavior. I rediscovered something familiar, NLP and hypnotherapy. This reinforced how language and environment shaped how we see ourselves, how the unconscious mind can learn, grow, and build confidence when given the right support. I began applying these tools first to myself, then with Cody. I changed how I spoke to him. I changed how I created his environment. I shared tools and strategies with him, which we would do together, and stopped trying to fix him. Instead, I learned how to meet him where he is, to better understand his world as best as I could and walk beside him. It's still a journey. We're still learning every day, but there's a bond now built on understanding, belief, and trust, not judgment or expectation. This journey with my son, it's not just a story. It's also my story. Some reflections on working away. It was a sacrifice I had to make for my family. It allowed my wife to be at home with my son. But looking back, I could have used some of this time to educate myself to better understand my son's world, and this might have reduced some of the conflicts my wife and I experienced in his younger years. Parental influence. On reflection, I took away that nothing and no one shapes my son's mind more than my wife and I. We can lean on professionals and they can help, but his biggest influence at the moment comes from the love, presence, and belief we bring into his world every day. The environment, the importance of maintaining a safe, loving, low-pressure environment has done more for Cody's potential than constant pushing ever did. I learnt this the hard way, not one of my proudest moments. I will share this in another video. Language. Realizing the power our words have and how they are shaping his identity in ways we don't always see. The way my wife and I speak around him, even the ones when we think he is not listening to. But maybe the most important of all of these is that I make mistakes. My emotions, my way of thinking may not always be on the positive and supportive side. However, as long as I'm aware and catch myself during these times, I have the ability to regroup and start fresh again. Thank you for riding the spectrum with us today. If this story resonated, feel free to share your own experiences in the comments. And if you haven't yet, I'd love it if you subscribed and joined us for more stories, insights, and small wins.